Thank you again. For the record, Darrell Perry, CEO of Liberty Lobby LLC, also the chair of the State Libertarian Party. And I want to try answering some of the questions that were tossed at Representative Dyer. Currently in statute, I believe it was Representative Porter and someone else who asked the question about, can't you currently make nominations at a convention? Well, yes, you could. The difference is those nominations would not be binding. So the Libertarians have a convention coming up in April. We could most certainly, nominate candidates. However, those candidates under current statute would still be required to go through that taxpayer-funded primary. And there's no guarantee that the party-nominated candidate at convention would win the taxpayer-funded primary. There's also, and this was not a explicitly asked question, but there was the question about, well, couldn't under this the Republicans or Democrats opt out? Well, yes, they could. And they also have that option in 19 other states. There are 19 states. I don't have the list in front of me right now. I know that Alabama is one of them that does allow any political party to opt out of having a primary and making nominations in the manner that they see fit. There are also some states that specify in statute a threshold for ballot access and a higher threshold for having a taxpayer-funded primary. Most of the states that have that two-tier system, the taxpayer-funded primary kicks in at either 10 or 15% of the vote in, like, the governor race. Pennsylvania is one of those states that has that two-tiered recognition system for political parties. Again, all this does is specifies that a party may opt out of having that taxpayer-funded primary so that nominations that they make in convention would then be binding, not just some form of strong recommendation, if you will. There was also the question about, and I don't know if this was specific to, would the Libertarians do this behind closed doors? Media is always welcome to attend any Libertarian Party convention. Just because they choose not to show up to the state conventions does not mean that WMUR and NH1 were not invited and welcome. And I know we're going over time. I could probably speak more on this. I will answer any questions, and if there's a subcommittee hearing, I will definitely be in attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Legislator Sousa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Is it possible that this would allow the Libertarian Party to wait and choose their nominee after seeing who the nominees?
No, because this specifies that the nominees would be submitted to the Secretary of State on the Wednesday 1 week prior to the primary. So this does not allow the Libertarians or any other political party to wait until they know who is winning an election. This basically is the same time period for when, if that political organization paperwork were done, this is the same timeline that the Secretary of State would say a political organization has submitted the requisite number of petitions. Here are their nominees.
Thank you, Representative Moore.
If the Democratic Party was to choose me to be the representative candidate in Coles County District 2, I'd sign up and go do it. But if some other Democrat in Coles County District 2 wanted to be the candidate, he could get on the primary ballot and run against me in the primary. As I understand.
Correct, because the Democratic Party uses the taxpayer-funded primary.
But what I'm hearing you say is that the Libertarian Party does not want to be involved in the primary process because they do not want the candidates they select to be able to be opposed by other Libertarians who want to be a Libertarian candidate.
If that is what you got from what I said, then I fundamentally misspoke. Libertarians are fundamentally opposed to using taxpayer funding for payment of private organizations And federal courts have consistently ruled that political parties are private organizations. Selecting the nominees of private organizations should be paid for privately, not through taxpayer funding.
Representative Moynihan, wants to follow up?
You still seem confused about what I'm saying.
The answer did not deflect my understanding of your proposal, which is that your candidates nominated in private conventions cannot be challenged by other libertarians in primaries. That's not what we're saying.
No, they would be able to make the challenge during the nominating convention. We're not opposed to, 2 or 3 or 4 libertarians in convention seeking the nomination. We are opposed to taxpayers being forced to foot the bill for our political party to choose our nominees, because we are a private organization.
Representative Hewitt.
So, Susan, thank you for taking my question. So if the Democrats, the Republicans, the Libertarians, and every other party that existed all decided to use the private method of having a convention, then it would sort of be like the national parties, and there would be no primary. The state would not hold a primary.
If all parties opted out of having a primary, then you are correct. There would not be a primary.
Right. Very good.
Which is one reason why I support easing ballot access laws for getting candidates on the general election ballot, so that voters actually have a real choice, not an illusion of choice. But that's a different bill.
Further questions for Mr. Perry? Representative Negron.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Perry. So how, as a military guy, and you shorten these windows, and I have no ballot from an absentee, how do I have a voice?
I'm not sure what window you're speaking of shortening.
For as a guy who's serving overseas, I get an absentee ballot. I go to my local voting officer. I have an absentee ballot that I get to fill out. That ballot has all the parties that are on there. And if this legislation says that you guys can opt out, excuse me, not you guys, but a party gets to opt out, when I get my absentee ballot, the only ones that are going to be on there are those like a Democrat or Republican. But if I'm a libertarian in this case, and I look at my absentee ballot, what's the mechanism by which I get to cast my vote?
Hopefully the Libertarian Party would actually send you something asking for your vote.
Follow on?
You're asking a complete hypothetical of something that I...
No, it's a ballot that I get as an absentee voter because I'm military overseas or Department of State.
Right, but you're asking how would the Libertarians go about corresponding with their members that happen to be overseas. Correct. When you've requested a Republican or Democratic absentee ballot. So I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
Let's say I'm a libertarian. My question is, it was a follow-on, Madam Chair. How do I get that from you to go on and give me a ballot to do it? It's just a curious question.
Generally, the way libertarian conventions operate is that anybody who is in attendance at the convention gets to vote. So the question that you're asking would require us to amend our bylaws to correspond with people who have chosen not to attend our convention for whatever reason. So again, it's a strange hypothetical that I can't answer.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Any further questions from committee members?